wonderful world of Disney. Mustang.
Mustang. The very word is a symbol of strength and courage and wild independence. The name is from the Spanish mesteño, which means a stray, a wanderer. The roots are in Spain, their blood Arabian, Andalusian, barb, and their heritage is combat. They were brought to Mexico in 1520, the first horses on the American continent. Fierce and indomitable, they were the war horses of the conquistadores. And with them, Cortés conquered Mexico in just 10 stormy years. But while some Spaniards plundered the New World of its golden treasures, they also left something far more valuable in return. For it was only natural that in the course of battle, some would escape to return to the wilds and breed and multiply. By 1880, herds of wild Mustangs could be found almost everywhere in Central and North America. And this is the story of one Mustang, born back then in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, the high country of Colorado. One of the mares who had foaled just a month or so ago was becoming aware that her colt had wandered away from the herd again. One day, as a full-grown stallion, the colt would come to be called Pechudo, a Spanish word meaning proud and strong. For now, though, he was just small and curious, and of course, always hungry. On this particular day, his curiosity had led him straight into trouble. Wolves. It had been a near miss. It would be many days before the young Pechudo wandered away from the herd again. The herd is the Mustang family unit, a collection of mares and colts led by one stallion and only one, the master stallion. Where the master stallion leads, the herd follows, but only as long as he can keep them. No monarch goes unchallenged for long. Most of Pechudo's young days were easy days, following the herd from meadow to meadow and growing. It was a good time, a time for the colt to reach high, to thrill to the feel of life pounding through him, to discover the wonder of himself. By the time the herd had drifted down from the highlands that next summer, the days of Pechudo's babyhood had passed. From now on, he would seldom be found at his mother's side. He'd been weaned at 6 months and was growing more and more self-sufficient. Even at this gangly age, he was strong enough to meet almost any foe, except for one. The one enemy the Mustang would never really be able to cope with. Italians had traveled far from home in search of mustangs, but the catch had been worth it. The mares would make good saddle horses, but the stallion was as fine an animal as they'd ever seen. And hopefully, they'd caught him young enough to be broken. In the days that had passed since Pechudo's capture, one young brave had been making special plans for him. The boy was anxious to make his mark as a man, and by tribal custom, whoever was first to ride the stallion would have first claim on him. It would be foolish to try anything while Pechudo was so full of fight. He would have to wait his chance. Over the days and the miles, Pechudo fought. But he did not yet have the overpowering strength of a full-grown stallion. He needed more than the will to be free. Like the young brave, he needed the chance. At last, one morning, it seemed to the inexperienced boy that the constant fighting had finally worn the stallion down. Now was the time. And so Pechudo was free once again, but he was also alone. And the Mustang is a herd animal, at a loss without others of his kind. As the miles passed and the seasons changed, Pechudo's loneliness only deepened. To make things worse, the winter snows had made just finding food more and more difficult. So it was only natural that in his search, he came to where other Mustangs were finding forage, too. In his excitement at finding others of his kind, Pechudo had forgotten one thing. He would only be allowed to join the herd if he were accepted by the stallion who led them. And so he had a new family and a new master stallion. And this stallion was a rare one. Mustangs with his peculiar coloration were called medicine hats by the Indians. And for his fierce fighting nature, this particular one had been named the Savage by men who'd hunted him. Pechudo would be well protected within this herd, but only for as long as the Savage tolerated him. In nature, the passing of time is marked by the seasons, by changes in the landscape, by growth. There was a change in Pechudo that next summer, too. As a 2-year-old, he was entering a new stage in his life, and with it came new problems. To him, it was simply a restlessness, a quickening of the spirit. But the Savage knew exactly what it meant. The young stallion's adolescence was giving way to maturity. The first warning should have been clear enough, but Pechudo hadn't taken it. There would be no second warning. Pechudo's situation was typical of young stallions. The Indians called such displaced bachelors dog soldiers, and they often banded together to take the edge off their loneliness while time passed. Like all dog soldiers, Pechudo now would wander in search of a herd he could claim as his own. But before that could come to pass, time was needed. Time to grow, to build strength, to gain experience. It is said that to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. And Pechudo's time would come. When spring had melted the last traces of that winter into swollen streams, Pechudo was in his third year and nearly full grown. Since that day 2 years ago, when he escaped from the Indians, Pechudo's journey had been epic. From his birthplace in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains of Colorado, into New Mexico, through the Llano Estacado, the Great Staked Plain, across the goodnight-loving cattle trail and into the Texas Panhandle, kept on the move by a force increasingly evident nearly everywhere: man. Mustangs had long prospered in the Americas until they were challenged for the use of the land by man. Then the Mustang, like the buffalo, was headed for bad times. Captured for use by ranchers or shot as menaces by stockmen, but mostly just crowded out by civilization. The only places left to the Mustang were the places man didn't want, the hostile places. This was puma country, one of the few predators that a full-grown stallion had to fear. This day would mark a milestone in Pechudo's life, for with the victory over the puma came a new self-assurance, a sense of his own power, and a greater urgency to his search. A few days later, he and his dog soldier friend crossed the Rio Grande into a barren desert of northern Mexico, their course taking them into ever more remote terrain, land which would grow no crop, support no stock, and a land without man. day, Pechudo found what he'd been searching for so long. The savage. It was Pechudo's former herd. Without knowing it, they'd traveled the same paths for the same reasons. It was not revenge that drove Pechudo into battle. It was simply the overpowering instinct to claim the savage's herd as his own. The mares were quick to accept Pechudo as their new leader. But his dog-soldier friend would be no longer welcome. He would have to find his own place in life somewhere else. Pechudo, the coming year was to be a year of contentment. Even in this remote terrain, there was water and feed enough to sustain his herd. And even more important, for now at least, he was free from the threat of man, free to live in peace. Spring saw a fine new batch of foals, colts bearing Pechudo's stamp. The stallion's life had come full circle now. Perhaps the day carried a faint scent on the wind, a distant sound half-registered. Or perhaps it was just some vague instinct gnawing at Pechudo. Whatever it was, he had a sense of foreboding, a feeling that all was not right. Even here, in the most remote reaches of the waste, man had come again. And so there was to be still another chapter in Pechudo's life, the most important chapter of all, one which could well be titled with the name of a boy, Julito.
Papá, mira!
These were the men of the Rancho Delgado. They had come to catch mustangs, and now, calmly and methodically, they would set about their business.
¡Alto! Los jinetes, síganme.
To Pechudo, all men meant just one thing, trouble. There was no other recourse but to run.
Ruiz! Set up the cook wagon by that hill. Chico, see if you can find some shade for the remuda.
Sí, señor.
Raton. You and Cheto, look down that canyon and take some men with you to cut some wood.
Sí, señor.
I'll help Reese get set up.
Well, don't be telling me about it.
Should have had
You
it
should have
done
had it done already.
Pechudo had driven the mares ahead of him for some time when he began to sense that the men had not followed. Men had always chased him before, but somehow it was even more frightening that this time they had not.
Bring more wood!
He just stands there, watching us.
He doesn't know what else to do. We'll stand there as long as there's a light to see.
Good night, Julito. Sleep well. The morning comes very early.
Good night, Reese.
Han nacido en mi rancho dos arbolitos. Dos arbolitos que parecen gemelos. Y desde mi casita los veo solitos. Bajo el amparo santo y la luz del cielo. Arbolito, arbolito, bajo tu sombra. Voy a esperar que el día cansado muera. solito mirando al cielo. Pido pa' que me mande una compañera. Nunca están separados uno del otro, porque así quiso Dios que los dos nacieran y con sus mismas ramas se hacen caricias, como si fueran novios que se quisieran.
Well, Julito, how do you like your first try at the Mustang?
Hard work.
You are my son. When you are the boss's son, you are expected to work twice as hard as all the others. Someday you will be boss. Then you will work harder still.
The stallion, Papa. Could I keep him for my own?
Well, you can dream about him at least. Good night to you, my son.
Good night.
Your mother would have been very proud.
That night was the longest of Pechudo's life. He knew the men out there meant danger, but of course he could not know what the dawn would bring. And so through the night he kept watch and waited. Morning found the herd still safe and grazing peacefully. But that was when Pechudo noticed that something was missing. The camp was empty. The men were gone.
It's worth it, no?
I've never seen such a horse.
¡Qué pechudo!
Proud one, all right.
Maybe we could catch him again.
He's gone, and for the best.
To lose the finest horse you have ever seen is for the best?
The mares we caught will accept a new home with us and become fine saddle horses. The stallion, well, Julito, I'm afraid we would have had to shoot him.
So Pechudo was free, but everything in his world had been taken from him. The men of the Rancho Delgado may have named Pechudo that day, but they had yet to learn just how proud and strong he was. If there were any way possible, he meant to reclaim his mares. Rancho Delgado. It was true, there was no place like home, and no matter how they hurried to get there, the last few miles always seemed the longest. The new wild mares were deliberately put in the same corral with the tamed ranch stock. This would be the quickest way to calm them.
We can start working in the morning. Go on. You better earn some time off.
As much as the vaqueros had anticipated this time of reunion with their families, so had Pechudo awaited this moment. The men were no longer between him and his family.
It was him! The stallion! He did follow!
Julito, get our horses. Diego, Felipe, mount up!
gone. For good.
Let us hope so.
Julito!
Julito knew he could not tell his father what he'd seen, but perhaps it did not matter anyway.
Oh, boy. Easy, Pechudo. Oh. Easy, Pechudo. No one's going to hurt you. You've been hurt enough. It seemed almost a miracle, but Julito could see no signs of broken bones, although obviously the horse was badly injured and would take much time to mend. Right now, the most important thing was to get him on his feet before his muscles stiffened and he drifted further into shock. Try to get up, Pechudo. Try to get up. Come on. Come on.
Abandonaste, mujer, porque soy muy pobre y por tener la desgracia de ser casado. 3 vicios tengo y los tengo.
Buenas noches. Buenas noches, señor.
De ser borracho, fugado y enamorado. ¿Qué voy a hacer si yo soy
Where have you been all day?
Oh, you're standing to one of the animals.
abandonado? Sea por el amor de
The coming days days would be full at the Rancho Delgado, for the work of Mustanging did not end with the capture. There was yet the breaking of the new mares. It was hard work, but it was exciting, and the men looked forward to showing off their skills. Usually, Julito was the first at the breaking pen and the last to leave. And so, Señor Delgado was a bit surprised to see him heading off by himself whenever he'd finished his chores. He would have been even more surprised if he'd known just what his son was doing.
Pechudo. Here, I brought you something to eat.
Han nacido en mi rancho dos arbolitos, dos arbolitos que parecen gemelos, y desde mi casita los veo solitos, bajo el amparo santo y la luz del cielo. Arbolito, arbolito, bajo tu sombra, voy a esperar que el día cansado muera. Y cuando estoy solito mirando al cielo, pido pa' que me mande una compañera. Nunca están separados uno del otro, porque así quiso Dios que los dos nacieran, y con sus mismas ramas se hacen caricias, como si fueran novios que se quisieran. Arbolito, arbolito, me siento solo. Voy a esperar que el día cansado muera.
What's the matter?
Well, Julito, you took it upon yourself to override my judgment. That was a big responsibility.
I'm sorry.
Look out there. My father built that ranch out of the dust with hard work and by doing things that were not always pleasant. Being sorry didn't build that ranch, Julito. Being sorry once too often would destroy it. La Señor Delgado would return to dust. What are you going to do about the stallion?
Me?
As my father once gave the ranch over to me, so will I one day give it over to you. Let us see what kind of decisions you will make. You taking responsibility for the horse? Bueno, it is yours.
What would you do, Papa?
Your choice is simple. The welfare of the ranch or the welfare of the horse. Clearly, there's only one thing possible. Shoot the horse, here and now.
But he's injured. No threat to anyone. And he's used to me. Perhaps he could be gentled. Or maybe we could even take him back to the ranch. And make him well. And then see.
So be it. The fate of the horse is in your hands. But on the day he gets well, he will be dangerous again. On that day, you must come up with some answers, Julito. I'm sorry to say, I know what must be in the end. When the time comes, it will be for you alone to say.
Time often has a way of passing too quickly. And for Julito, the day of decision came almost before he knew it.
Buenos días.
Yes.
Buenos días, Julito.
He'll soon become bored, Julito. And that corral won't hold him 1 minute longer than he wants to be held.
If he's to stay with us, there's only one thing possible. I'll talk to some of the men. Stallions have been broken to saddle. They say it's sometimes possible.
Not a stallion.
For breaking horses, there's none better than Diego.
You would be very dangerous, Julito. Diego would not refuse me if I asked. For that reason, I cannot ask him.
But he already said he would try. When the time came.
Hey, you two be ready to help me.
Raton, get over there! Ayúdele!
Whoa, Pechudo! Whoa! 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 No, Pechudo! No! Oh, boy, easy! Oh! Quieto, Pechudo. Easy, boy.
Ustedes no valen el rabo de un puerco. Una vez más, ya fuera con ustedes.
Perdone, señor. Pero don Federico, pasó tan rápido.
So, Julito, this could come as no surprise to you. What do we do now?
I'll need more time to think of an answer.
How much more time, Julito? Until someone gets killed? No, Julito. More time is one thing you cannot have.
Then we must take him away. Far away. Even beyond the Diablos.
I gave Raton and Cheto one more chance. I can certainly go that far for you. But if that horse returns...
Then, it will be as you said.
The Diablos, the barren, wind-carved wasteland that marked the furthest boundary of the Rancho Delgado. It was here and beyond that father and son together brought Pechudo.
This is far enough. Turn him loose.
A new place for you, Pechudo. Make it your home. Adios, Pechudo. Adios. Ha! Come on, get out of here! Pechudo, ándale! Ha! Come on, Pechudo, ándale! Ha!
Now, get rid of that long face. It's been many miles since we left him behind, Julito. Tomorrow, the charreada. In a few days, your 13th birthday. Julito, what do you see out there?
There's nothing to see. The Diablos.
I said the same when I was your age, Julito. All my life, I wondered how to make use of it, how to make it productive. But it'll take a smarter man than I, Julito. Perhaps one day you will think of a way.
Here is done.
Beautiful, Ruiz. Beautiful.
Happy birthday, Julito. Feliz cumpleaños.
For me? It can't be. It was to be yours, Papa. It's a man's saddle.
Yes. Your father thought you wouldn't mind celebrating your birthday a little early. Now you can ride a saddle to the charreada tomorrow. Feliz cumpleaños, Julito.
Feliz cumpleaños, hijo.
señores, este día de placer tan dichoso, hoy los ángeles cantan en coro por los años que vas a cumplir. Solamente un recuerdo ha quedado de la infancia que al fin ya pasó. Celebremos con gusto, señores, tus amigos, parientes y yo.
¡Feliz cumpleaños, Julito!
Happy birthday, son.
The moment had come. In the silent exchange between father and son, Julito pronounced the death sentence on Pechudo.
Some say a boy reaches manhood on his 13th birthday. This has never been more true than in your case. I'm proud of you, my son, for making a man's decision. You go to the charreada in the morning. I will attend to this matter.
Julito, are you feeling all right?
I have no heart for the charreada today.
It will pass, Julito. Ahí se va.
All through the year, Julito had dreamed of this day. But the dream had turned into a nightmare. For everything here now only served to remind him of Pechudo.
Julito, we couldn't find him. We searched everywhere.
Cheto and Raton.
What?
You paid them last night.
Of course. Of course. They must have caught him and sold him to Alvarez.
Pechudo? Oh.
If Pechudo had to die, at least Julito would make sure he would die as he had lived, running free.
Run, Pechudo. Run to the Diablo. Diablos!
Señor Delgado, your son had no right to take it upon himself.
You will be paid for your loss, Senor Alvarez.
No, senor, the horse was one of a kind. Bring the horse back to me.
No. For such a horse to be captive is to suffer a living death.
Naturally, Señor Delgado only thought his son was going off to be alone with his sadness. But the truth was, Julito had headed back to the rancho and Pechudo's mares. Julito had had an idea he wouldn't have dared try to explain to anyone. Besides, there was no time for explanation. He would do what he had to do, just as he knew his father and the men of the Rancho Delgado were doing what they had to do.
I hope you have a good explanation for this, Julito.
I think so. You see? He makes his home in the Diablos. He will stay on our land. Let him stay here with his mares and we can raise colts on this land. Pechudo's colts.
It was such a simple idea, yet so perfect. The Rancho Delgado would be richer for it. Richer by far in many ways.
Is it all right?
It is indeed.
And so Pechudo's story finally came to its proper beginning. Man, or at least some men, had come to accept him on his own terms. Now his spirit and his freedom would always be preserved and treasured, and through his colts he would live forever, for Julito's children to see and their children for all time.